Good evening. We're starting tonight with a major developing story, a flashpoint in the tense relationship between Alberta and Ottawa that could have serious consequences for the justice system. Alberta's premier has essentially drawn a line in the sand. In a new letter, she's threatening to withhold provincial funding for any new judges until the federal government gives Alberta a much bigger say in who gets appointed to the bench. We have our reporter with us to break this all down. So, to start, can you just walk us through how we even choose judges in Canada right now? What's the system that's causing all this friction? Absolutely. To really get what's happening, you have to look at the current system because it was specifically designed to be independent and keep politics out of the courtroom as much as possible. Okay, so the whole process revolves around what's called a Judicial Advisory Committee, or a JAC. It's a 7-member panel. As you can see, the federal government gets to appoint 3 people, and the province gets 1. But here's the important part. 3 other members come directly from the legal community. We're talking about representatives from the Chief Justice, the Law Society, and the Canadian Bar Association. This group vets all the candidates and then sends a list of recommendations to Ottawa, who makes the final pick. Okay, so on the surface, that seems like a pretty broad-based system. What exactly is Premier Smith proposing to change about it? Well, this isn't just a minor tweak. She's proposing a complete overhaul of that committee, one that would fundamentally shift the balance of power. So she wants to get rid of that 7-member committee and replace it with a much smaller 4-person panel. And here's the real game changer. The seats would be split evenly. 2 nominees from Ottawa and 2 from Alberta. But what's really striking here is who's not at the table anymore. Those 3 independent representatives from the legal and judicial world, they're just gone. And that 2-2 split is exactly what has critics so concerned. Because in practice, it creates a political veto for both the provincial and the federal governments. If they can't agree, nothing moves forward. The big fear is that you can end up in a total political deadlock, freezing the whole appointment process and leaving courtrooms without judges. A political veto. Yeah, that sounds like it could be a huge problem. So what has the reaction been from the legal community? Well, the reaction has been swift, and it has been sharp. A lot of the pushback has focused on the specific language the premier used to justify this proposed change. Right, so in her letter, the premier wrote that any new appointees have to reflect Alberta's distinct legal traditions. And that one phrase has caused a ton of confusion and controversy, with legal experts trying to figure out what exactly that's supposed to mean. And when we say confusion, we mean it. The Criminal Trial Lawyers Association was asked what they thought that phrase meant, and they gave this incredibly blunt response you see here. They said they have, quote, no idea what the hell that means. And here's why that phrase is so jarring to legal ears. Officially, Canada recognizes 3 legal traditions. There's common law, which comes from England and is used in Alberta and most other provinces. There's civil law, which is unique to Quebec. And then there are Indigenous legal traditions. Since Alberta is firmly a common law jurisdiction, it's left a lot of people wondering what other unique tradition the premier could possibly be referring to. So the lawyers are clearly baffled by this. What about the judges themselves? Have they weighed in on all this? They have, and in a way that is highly, highly unusual. Alberta's 3 chief justices from the Court of Appeal, King's Bench, and the Court of Justice actually issued a joint public statement. They directly addressed the political rhetoric, reminding everyone that a functioning democracy depends on an independent judiciary and that judges must be free from the political pressure of the very governments that appoint them. Wow, a public statement from the Chief Justices is definitely a big deal. So how has the federal government officially responded to the Premier's letter? The Federal Justice Minister's office put out a statement that really just defends the current system. The key phrase they used is that the whole point of these advisory committees is to keep appointments at arm's length from political influence. For them, that separation is a core principle that's just not up for debate. And so the standoff continues. It all boils down to this really fundamental question, not just for Alberta, but for the entire country. Where do you draw the line between a province's desire for more say and the foundational principle that our courts must remain independent from the politicians they might one day have to rule on?